Well, thank you very much to Thunderbird to inviting me to give these lectures. And I am using this microphone only with recording purposes because they are going to try to record this in order to deliver around the campus for other students to hear the two presentations. The first one is related to leadership. You know, leadership is the most controversial word ever in the history of business administration and the corporate world. We can discuss about leadership for hours, days, months, and years, and we'll never reach an agreement. Never. This has been studied since 1978, when a book came out named Leadership by James McGregor Burns, nowadays a professor at the University of Maryland. He's still alive, was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and the book is a thick book, a terrible book to be read. But the three first pages are outstanding. He changed the vision of leadership around the world, saying that there are two types of leaders, the transformational leaders and the transactional ones. That's it. That was his contribution. And since that moment on, everyone started researching what is the meaning of transformational and transactional leadership. And this is going to be the main focus of my presentation. The first part, we are going to discuss about some general aspects of leadership, and then I will provide you the research that we are doing at Centrum Católica since the year 2004. The first one is the most controversial one. Every business school in the world, everyone, not even one, they all use the word leadership. I will show you some web pages of the most important business schools in the world, and you will see what is interesting there. Because when you go under accreditation of AACSB, for example, you have to prove that your mission is being accomplished. But if you read these missions, I don't know how these schools could have proof that they have accomplished their missions. And we will see them. This is offered by all the schools. Business schools offer to craft leaders in their MBA programs as magic. You enter into the MBA program, and after 2 years, you come out as a leader. I am not going to say that that is a lie, but it's not the truth, at least. They don't measure that. How can they prove that they are developing or crafting or doing something on leadership? Are they accomplishing that promise? You see, these are 4 of the most important business schools in the world. There are much more. There is Wharton, there is Thunderbird. But you read the first one. Harvard, to educate leaders who make a difference in the world. How can they prove that? The second, TAC, students for leadership position in the world's foremost organizations. Wow, impressive. The third one, Stanford, to develop innovative, principled, and insightful leaders who change the world. And they have to prove that these students have changed the world. But the most important, to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world. They change the world. I don't know why. This is amazing, huh? Yeah, there is a reflection. Well, who change the world and who improve the world. You see? How can they prove when the accreditor bodies come to test if the mission is being accomplished? It's impossible. It's impossible. Now, Berkeley, shaping future business leaders. Kellogg's, developing global leaders who make contribution of lasting significance for the world. It's amazing. It's amazing. This one in France, capable of assuming leadership and piloting change. This is another school in Miami. It's a Spanish program in the University of Miami. Líder ejecutivo. University of Bath in United Kingdom. To become a future business leader, start with one inspired decision. The Bath MBA. That's impressive, no? This is the University of Hong Kong, no? Global leaders of today and tomorrow, right here in Asia. And we have a lot of leaders around the world. But why we are claiming that we are lacking of leadership? This one in Yonsei University, no? We serve to foster global business leaders. And this is the most interesting one, this one, not the following. Creating leaders, transforming business. That is impressive. ITAM in Mexico. A beautiful lady standing up on top of the word leader. This is the accent of the word leader in Spanish. The I comes with an accent. With leader, pon el acento en tu futuro. Put the accent in your future. This is Centrum Católica, of course. El mundo es la oficina de un líder, ¿no? The world is the leader's office. You see? This is amazing. You try to see every web page, every brochure, every mission statement, and you will find the word leadership. How can they prove that? I don't know. Leaders have always existed, and the act of leading is as old as humanity. You remember the nomads? There was a guy walking and the others following them. They don't even know how to speak. They don't even know how to tell anything, but they were leading by a person. Now, I would like to ask you, and I want to make this session as interactive as possible, I would like to ask you the most difficult question to be answered. Are leaders born or made? Please raise your hand, those that think that leaders are born. 3, 4. Well, I mean that the rest thinks that leaders are made, of course. No? Leaders are made also. No? Are born or made? Well, there are two theories. Those are the ones. Tabula rasa and genetic signature. Tabula rasa indicates that persons, when are born, are a blank sheet of paper. Nothing. Empty. Empty. And you start putting things throughout your life. And the second one states that people born with a genetic signature. That is the great distinction. Nature and nurture. This is nature and this is nurture. Who is right? Who is right? We don't know. We haven't proved that even now, after more than 40 years researching this. and probably will need a century more, and we are not going to reach an agreement. My feeling, my opinion, is that we are born with a genetic signature. You can see that in sickness. Unfortunately, I have to say that example. I see families where the grandfather died of cancer, stomach cancer, the son, stomach cancer, the grandson, stomach cancer. Why? Because there is a signature. There is a genetic signature. Also, this is a research made by Bruce Abolio. Bruce Abolio is the #1 in leadership studies in the world nowadays. He's a professor of the University of Washington at Seattle, and he's a visiting professor at Centrum Católica. He was in Lima last month. Most of the questionnaires that have been developed for leadership are being made by this guy, Bruce Abolio. And the research says this: genetic 30%, environment 70%. That means born 30, made 70%. That is the opinion. Last week I saw a webinar, but the professor, I don't recall his name, on leadership, and the opinion of this professor was that in his research, 50% and 50%. 50% born, 50% made. This is an information provided by the Science Daily in Princeton University. You can read this. Genetic signature of stem cells, discovering a subset of genes whose products may give their cells their unique traits. I have a son that is a medical doctor at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and I asked him 2 years ago if they have made in Johns Hopkins a research on genetics, and he told me, yes, we are doing that. And we have found that there are genes that identify people that has the potential traits of being a leader. Potential. You know, this is a different situation to have the traits, to have the attributes, and to use them in order to produce results. Because you can have the traits, you can have the attributes, and you produce nothing. Then you are a useless leader. Leaders have to achieve results. And that is the most important part of leadership. Results. And results for good. For the common good. Not destroying results also. And this is an interesting result of this genetic signature. This guy is a nice guy. Was a nice guy. Peter Drucker. If Peter Drucker has written something, please believe him. He's a great guy. He was a great guy. And, well, this book was written in 1954. I suggest you, I recommend you to read that book. Now it's being printed in every language: Spanish, English, French, Italian, Arabic. No? The practice of management. The practice of management. People say, why didn't we read Peter Drucker's book? Leadership is of utmost importance. Indeed, there is no substitute for it. 1954. That was much prior than James McGregor Burns' book, 1978. But leadership cannot be created or promoted. It cannot be taught or learned. Wow. That's an impressive statement. A very impressive statement. Many definitions, explanations, models, books papers, articles. It's an avalanche of documents being produced around the word leadership. And starting 1978, this avalanche started. Up to now, people is researching this. And there is no a clear result of what is the meaning of leadership. Now, we are going to see some fellows, and you will tell me if they are leaders or not. Was he a leader? Why, Oscar? Why, Augusto? He was a leader.
Because of the ideal, the fellows, the ideas, and what he's trying to do, and people follow.
People follow. People follow. 2012 years following him. No? Good guy. He made good. He was not a destructive person. What about this guy? A leader. Mahatma Gandhi liberated India, was a nice person. What about these two fellows? Beautiful fellows in uniform. Hitler and Mussolini. Were they leaders? Sandri, were leaders? Why?
Good guys there. They achieved results, right?
But good results or bad results? What do you say? They had followers. They had followers. What did they achieve? Destruction. Destruction. You know, there was a conference 2 years ago at the University of Maryland with James McGregor Burns there. He's a very old guy now. The best people studying leadership were there. And at the end, they concluded that these guys were not leaders. Were not leaders. They destroyed the world. This guy killed 6 million people, thinking that the race was a pure race and the rest were worthless. That is not something that we can imagine. What about this guy? Jean Paul II. He was a leader, of course. He's being followed. What about this guy? Yeah, he's a scientific leader. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he removed the science of the use of these famous tablets. You know? What about this guy? He has followers. We don't know if he's still alive or not. He was not a leader, of course. That's 3 more examples. What about Bill Gates? Bill Gates is a leader. What about this fellow? You know, the theory of relativity. Millions of followers, and for the goodness of the humankind. What about this guy? No, he was not a leader, of course. The last one, Martin Luther King. Yeah, of course, he was a leader. You don't know this guy probably, the Americans, Simón Bolívar. He was the creator of Bolivia, a country south of Peru. He was the libertador of Peru with another guy from Argentina. You know, we were discussing last night during the dinner with Devicio and Yaro how Peru was the last stronghold of the Spanish colony. No? And there was an expeditionary troop that came from Argentina with San Martin, and another one came from Venezuela with Simón Bolívar. And the two met in Peru in 1820. It was the last country to get independence, Peru. And at that moment, Bolívar wanted to give his name to a country, and separated the Alto Peru from Peru and named it Bolivia. No? We don't like him very much because of that, of course, but yeah, it happens. What about this guy? It's a brand new guy removing the Venezuela democracy, Hugo Chavez. No? He has a lot of followers. No? But he's a leader. Is he a leader? Is he not a leader? Well, we can discuss that forever. Tell me, what are the attributes that the leader should have? Tell me one, the best, most important for you, Jorge.
Well, it's the capacity to convince the people regarding a common idea and a common goal, objective.
Convince people.
Follow.
To achieve a common idea. What about you, Jose? The most important attribute of a leader.
To me, like influence. Influence getting your vision, your idea through.
Influence, that's good. And especially the second word is a very important. Vision. What about you, Fernando?
Values.
Values, of course. Values. Good enough.
And trust.
And trust. Carmen.
Inspire people.
Inspire. Let's put it here. Inspire people. But what about you,
In this
Juan Carlos?
influence people who share their mind, experience with other ones.
Share.
Not like inspire, but also share, and also commitment with a vision.
I like that word, commitment. What about you, Sandri? Only one word.
Follow.
Follow. Okay. Let's do it. Followers. What about you? Devisu.
Motivational.
Motivational. What about you?
Mine's not one word, but I was going to say create positive change.
Positive change. Very good. Very good. That is a very good one. Positive change. That is very important, especially the word positive, because you can say change, but could be a negative change. No, Hitler was a negative change. What about you, Augusto?
I think he must demand the maximum effort from the followers
Demanding effort,
to reach the objective.
yeah, maximum efforts. What about you, Professor?
There is no professor I know that can answer one word.
Okay.
But there is, maybe in Spanish, but can you say bring out the best in people?
Okay. Best from people. Very good words. You're a very, very keen group. What about you?
Guidance. Guide people to get results.
Guidance. Guidance to get results. Jairo.
Something that can build up that creates clarity. Creates clarity.
Creates clarity. Okay. What about you?
Or you will be a mix of all of those things,
Very good. Very good. Those are perfect definitions. Probably I'm going to elaborate a little bit about vision, about positive change, and most of them. No? When I started this research in 2004, I reviewed the literature and I found about 200 definitions. The good ones. And I am going to share with you, I will say, the ones that I thought were the best. No? Kuses and Posner, very known authors of leadership studies, leadership is a reciprocal relationship between those who choose to be leaders and those who choose to be followers. Then you have a dyad. There is a dyad. There is no possibility of having leaders without followers. Leaders has to have followers. It's impossible to separate that. No? The second one, leadership, is the art of influencing others. I think influence was here. To get their maximum performance, to achieve a task, objective, or project, or goal, or whatever. You indicated that, no? Where was that? Maximum efforts. And we will see that that is the most important attribute of a leader, to make others reach their maximum performance in order to achieve good goals, positive goals, change, transformation. This is the most, for me, the best definition. The best definition. By Warren Bennis. Warren Bennis is still alive. He's a professor at the University of Southern California. He's 85 years old or something like that. He's still writing books. Says leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Because vision itself is not complete. You have to translate that vision into reality. That makes that leaders are visionary people. And people long term. You cannot transform vision into reality in 1 year or in 2 years. Transformation needs 50, 30 years in a country, 10 years in a corporation. Leadership is a process that involves a vision and long-term thinking. Then we are going to see that long-term is a quite important word. What is long-term? Carmen, what is long-term? In years. In years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years. Jose?
Hard to tell, but I would guess more than 5 years at least.
Jairo?
You're working with, yeah, I'm working with this.
Yeah, I will say that the long term depends on the industry in which your company is in. For a high-tech company, long term is 1 year. For an oil company, long term is 30 years. There is a mistake thinking that long term could be attached to a time horizon. Jairo.
Next good question. Does it also depend on culture? I was working with a couple of Japanese clients. We're looking over the next 100 years, and I don't know what long-term means in Latin and South America.
Very good. Very good point. We are going to see this in the second part of the presentation. Okay. Depends on the culture. We are going to see cultures of high context and cultures of low context. Yeah, I saw some of the presentation yesterday, and that is a very important subject. What type of culture are you dealing with? Now, this is another beautiful definition. Bennis smartly, I don't know how this is, stated that leadership is like beauty. Very difficult to be defined. You see something beautiful, you say, how do you think that is beautiful? Well, I don't know, it's beautiful. When you see the Mona Lisa, the Gioconda, you know, the painting by Leonardo da Vinci, it's beautiful. Why is it beautiful? I don't know. It's beautiful. Why? I don't know. You cannot define beauty because it's a very relative concept. Leadership is the art of influencing others to their maximum performance to accomplish any task, objective, or project. Very, very, very important definition. Maximum efforts. Maximum efforts. That is the real leader. But achieving positive changes, that is quite important. Is the ability to influence individuals or groups to think, feel, and take positive actions to achieve goals. So many definitions, and all are very good ones. And I am only stating 10 or 12 definitions out of the 200 or 300 definitions that I saw in different books, articles, and research being produced. This is an interesting definition. You know Kantian theory? What did Kant stated many years ago? He called the egalitarian theory. All people are equal. There is no difference. Then that doesn't mean that there is no a leader nor a follower. If we are all similar, or are equals, or are peers, there is no possibility to have a leader and a follower. That's a very interesting definition about the Kantian theory of leadership. The theory says that egalitarian, we are all equal. We are all equal. Now we have one or two more. Machiavelli says everything is around power. I don't care. I don't care about leadership. I care about power. And who has power has control and can lead. That's a terrible definition, of course. No? Machiavelli has influence in the world negatively in many presidents, countries, kings, and this is terrible to follow the ideas of Machiavelli. This is one of the most practical and probably last definition by John Carter. John Carter is a professor of Harvard Business School, author of many books about change. The best book of his is Leading Change. And he says there are 4 characteristics of a leader. The first one, address people. The second one, aligning people. Let's go into that direction. That is our vision. And we have to achieve those goals. Motivate and inspire. It's quite important. And producing change. He means the word positive. Not only producing change, producing positive changes. Most authors says that charisma is very important in leaders. Do you think that charisma is important in leaders? What do you say, Jorge? Charisma is important in leaders?
It could be necessary, but I'm not pretty sure it is the most important characteristic of a leader.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
It helps.
It helps.
It's not enough.
Yeah, it's not enough. You see, Mahatma Gandhi was not a charismatic guy. Yeah, it is a complementary attribute, probably, but not is a necessary condition to be a leader. No? Credible, yes. Credible, yes. It's important to be credible. Now, to finish up and to complete all this definition, I can state this. No? Leaders guide people, influencing them in a positive way, and developing activities and strategies with them. With them. It's important that the leader work together with the followers. We are not talking about management. We are not talking of a vertical situation. We are a group together moving the organization into a positive goal, a positive vision, to achieve targets, to get the vision set out together. Set out together. That is quite important. When we establish the vision and mission of Centrum, the third one, for the years 2008 to 2013, we exchanged our vision and mission with more than 500 stakeholders. More than 500 stakeholders. And received a feedback from students, alumni, professors, administrative staff, no? Companies that work with us. And at the end, our final vision and mission was the result of this, of the contributions of all these people. About 300 answered, not all of them answered, but about out of the 500, 300 was a great number. And we established our vision, mission for 2013. Now running the fourth vision and mission for the next strategic planning of Centrum for the years 2013 and 2018. Leaders transform vision into reality, producing changes, positive changes of course, and challenging the status quo. That is a very important word. You have to challenge the status quo. A good leader is not in agreement with the status quo. They challenge the status quo. We have to change. We have to move forward. We have to lead. We have to be the first ones. You need to have ambitious visions. Otherwise, it's useless. And to finish this definition stuff, to be successful, leaders must have a strategic mindset. That is the most important word. A strategic mindset. For me, a leader has to be a strategic-minded person. Otherwise, there is no possibility to be a leader. Because a strategy means long-term. A strategy means long-term depending of the industry in which you are working. Make vision, make transformation, but make transformation positive. And that is the reason Mr. James McGregor Byrne said in 1978, leaders have to be transformational. There is another word that we are going to see in a few minutes that is transactional. What is the meaning of each of these? That is the most important part when you do research on leadership. And be careful, business schools form their students to be transactional. That's a pity. That is a pity. When we follow organizational behavior, when we follow organigrams or organic charts, no, when we say a manual of functions, that is to be a transaction. And this is terrible nowadays. Terrible nowadays. Unfortunately, most of us work in a transactional way. Unfortunately. Then I will ask some questions. I want to make this interactive. There are three words here: myth, reality, or mistake. I want you to answer these questions. The first, leadership is a rare skill. It's a myth, it's a reality, or it's a mistake. Fernando.
I think that not just a mistake, it's a myth because you can find leadership in any kind of we are talking in a position and also inside them.
What do you say, Professor? It's a myth, it's a mistake, it's a reality. Leadership is a rare skill. It's a myth. Davisu, it's a myth. Who else? It's a myth. That means that everyone is a leader. Leaders are born or not made. Myth, reality, or mistake. Augusto.
I think we are born in special conditions of environment, making them wake up.
Yes.
It's a rare skill for me. We cannot argue with this because we can discuss this forever. For me, the first one is a reality. It's a rare skill. The second one, are born or not made. It's a discussion that will go forever. No? I think that they are born, but they have to be made. Because a person is born with the attributes and traits, but if that person doesn't discover, they will stay as, yeah. Leaders are charismatic. Yeah. No, Bill Gates is not charismatic. No, it's a mistake. Leader exists only in a senior management. No, that is a mistake. Leaders control, manages, and manipulates. That's a mistake. I will say the first one is a reality, the second one is a reality, the third one is a myth, the fourth one is a myth, the fifth is a mistake, and the last one, the only task of the leader is to increase the shareholder value. That is also a mistake. Benis and Nanus is a very important book. No? They ask those questions, and the idea is to discuss around them, and we'll see reality, reality, myth, myth, mistake, mistake. That's my opinion. I don't say that this is the real opinion. Devisu.
Why do you feel that leadership is a rare skill? Why do you feel that is a reality?
Because you don't have too many. You don't have too many. You know, in Peru, you see every day we are missing leaders. We claim for leaders. Where are the leaders? They don't show up. No leaders. And I told you yesterday, yes.
But I might say we see leaders every day. In food service, transportation industry, I would say that there's a view about I do believe the leadership at all levels.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
If it's a bus driver or
Yeah, of course.
Or a woman in an Indian community.
Of course.
Making it work. I mean, those are leaders that you don't see because they don't lead the country, but they lead their communities and they lead their small groups. Those are leaders, I think.
That's a perfect example. That what you are doing, Thunderbird for Good, in Peru, no? They are going into very poor women, no, and developing entrepreneurial skills in them, and they are very successful. No? We have a center inside Centrum. It's called Entrepreneurial Women, or something like that. by Beatrice Abolio, our academic dean. She's a lady, and she has produced a lot of research related women in entrepreneurship positions. And that started from nothing, very poor, and now are exporting to China. Yeah? We are producing a book that is going to be presented next week. I will send you some copies. Yeah? And it's very interesting, the work that is important, no? To find those skills in persons. That is the task of a leader, to find in others leadership skills. That is quite important. How do organizations know if their managers are leaders? Do they know that? They don't know. They have no idea. You know, all over the world, companies that sell leadership skills to be produced attending a workshop are hundreds, and charge companies a lot of money. They took the managers to a river, they make them jumping into the water, no, to start working without shoes, climbing a ladder, and they say, you are going to be a leader. That's a lie. That they are cheating them. The only thing that you are going to get a broken leg, no? And you are not going to be a leader. And they charge you thousands of dollars. This is impossible. You cannot make a person becoming a leader making those type of exercises. Could be very motivational, but nothing else. That is it. That is what organizations do, and spend a lot of money. Second, are business schools the place to craft leaders? Are we in charge of that? I will say yes. It's not our mission. Instead, in spite of saying that, but this is a place, it's a possible place, no? Otherwise, in the day-to-day, Jose.
I don't think the word is craft.
Craft.
I disagree, because what you have to take is people with the raw material and the potentials
Okay.
to be a leader and help them develop those skills.
Okay.
Which is different than crafting, because as you said at the beginning, it's not that you take any person out of the street, put him in a business school, and boom, you get a leader.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is attract people with that potential, and then give
Yeah.
them all the instruments and materials
Yeah.
to develop leaders, I would say.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Probably craft, develop. I don't know if I am using the exact word, but the idea is that one, and you are right. The admission process should be very careful in that situation to see if these people is having the skills to become possibly a leader throughout the MBA program. No? How do we measure leadership? How do we measure leadership? I will tell you that there are instruments, there are questionnaires, valid and reliable ones. Bruce Abolio and Bernard Bass did produce the most important questionnaire to measure leadership. It's called the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire, MLQ. I'm going to show that instrument that we are using at Centrum since 2004. Does leadership vary in different cultures? It's the same to lead people in China that to lead people in Brazil or to lead people in the United States. It's completely different. Completely different. You cannot use the same procedures or way of doing depending on the culture. You have to adapt your leadership behaviors and skills to that culture. But the final, the end, has to be the same. You have to influence people, you have to reach, to transform a vision into reality, long-term, a strategic mindset, positive changes, maximum efforts. All this has to be taken into account, of course. Are leaders born or made? Well, I asked that question several times. And I think, as I told you before, leaders are born, but we have to make. They have to be made. Yes, Jorge. Yeah.
Based on the statement that leaders are born, not made, if this is true, perhaps some of us could be unhappy because probably I think for what I study, if probably I'm not born as a leader.
That's a good question. That is a good question. But what happens if everyone in an organization is a leader? No followers. Yeah, you don't need, it's not a must to have a lot of leaders. You have to be a good manager. I think the task of a business school is to develop or to craft good managers. That is the day-to-day working status of an organization. And it's important to have a lot of very good managers and a few good leaders. Otherwise, my question that I always do when I teach leadership at Centrum says, can you produce Messis? You know who is Messi? Messi is a soccer player, the number one in Peru, in the world, the number one in the world. Messi, you cannot produce Messis, no? You cannot produce Beethovens or Verdis, no? This is difficult. Yeah, there are some kind of people that could be a good soccer player or a good musician or a good singer, no? And but it's important to search oneself if we have some conditions to be a leader. That is the reason of the first question. How do organizations know if their managers are leaders? You had a question.
In an organization, an executive, the role of a leader, of an executive, is a continuous or is switchable? Sometimes you're leaders, sometimes you're followers.
It's a very good question. Everyone has to be, in some time, a follower. To become a good leader, you have to be first a good follower. You have to learn, you have to discover your skills, and there is an opportunity always that triggers you. And probably you never find that opportunity. And you can die not even knowing that you were a leader. But that is an important question because that is the task of the organizations. The question, Jorge's question is, how can I know that the people that I have in my organization has those skills to be a leader? It will be very complicated if 100 people are leaders and good leaders, because you are going to have a clash of cultures at that moment, and it's too complicated. No?
I think the mission in the organization is to search or find talent. You must discover talent first.
Yeah.
And then you become something about them.
Yeah. And the other part of your question was an interesting one. You can switch from leader to manager, for example. That would be an ideal situation. To have a guy that is a good manager and has leader conditions. Because the day-to-day is for managers. The long-term, the transformation is for leaders. That is important. Now, I'm going to explain you a little bit what we are doing at Centrum, which is very interesting research. It's a very serious research. we have involved in this research more than 5,000 MBA students, and we are still doing research. We have published a lot of papers, books on leadership due to this research. We at least are trying to know if we are crafting or developing or producing leaders. We cannot claim that we produce leaders. That would be a lie. No, we don't know. What we are doing now is going to tell us if our MBA curriculum is doing something to improve the skills of our students, which at least is something, no? And I can prove that when the accreditation bodies come to auditing us. They are very surprised. Oh, wow, you are doing that. Yeah, we are doing this, no? And we are doing in companies. We did that at the Naval Academy in Peru, no? And we found very interesting results. Very interesting results. And this is, we started this research in 2004. This was my thesis. Not a MBA or doctoral thesis. That is my thesis. That is my opinion. This is what I want to prove. And what I want to prove is the following. People born with some personal resources. We born. We are not a tabula rasa. That is my opinion. We are not born blank paper. We are born with something. Good or bad, I don't know. Yeah, but we have genes, no? There. During our life, we are in an environment, in a society, experience is being gained, positive or negative. You mentioned the twins research that was made years ago in the United States. The twins, identical twins. That is forbidden now. But in the 30s, in the United States, there were a lot of research with identical twins coming from very poor people, and they took the identical twins when they were born, and one was put in a family, very rich, wealthy family, and the other was put in a very poor, very dramatic family. And they observed them during 30 years. It's impressive. Impressive research. You can read it. It's very interesting. And they never knew one to each other. And they were identical twins. And after 35 or 40 years, they met. And you saw very identical physical traits. The two of them were bald. The two of them bite their nails, no? And physically identical, but one was created in an environment very soft, wealthy, good school, good university, the best university. The other one not even go to school, never graduated from high school, no? Never did a college education. And you found a completely different situation in both relating to this society, experience, and environment. This is forbidden now. When you do research in social science, you have to request permission of the persons that you are researching. They have to sign a paper to participate in the research. That is called informed consent. Consentimiento informado, informed consent. No? And you cannot do your research, the identical twin research anymore. Unfortunately, I don't know, unfortunately, it was very sad. No? But at the end, the environment makes a lot of influence in your person. If you go to a good school, a good university, a good family, a good friends, then you are growing in a very stable situation, and that contributes to your birth genes and develop three important things in your person: personality, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. This is my opinion, and this is the research I am doing. There are many more, no? And those are the conditioning in leadership. This is the dependent variable, and those are the independent variables. This is a very statistical developed research with a lot of people involved in the research. We have produced a lot of documents, and I will show some results about this. And why do we want leaders? Because we need a strategic vision in our persons to change our country, to change our organizations. And that is the relationship that I indicated here. If you have to transform a vision into reality, that is the vision I want to achieve, that is the vision I want to achieve, I have to go through all this. And the most important part of this is the measurement with reliable and valid instruments of each of those traits. You have a personality. You don't know your personality. You have never measured it. You don't never know. You are critical thinkers. This is a terrible result that we have found. Our students are not critical thinkers. They learn by memory. They never analyze why they are reading that. What the author wanted to do when they wrote this document or this book or this article.
That's not just your students.
No, all the students all over the world. Yeah. And emotional intelligence is very important because we need to control our emotions in favor of a leadership style. And that is the importance of this type of research, that we haven't found this type of research in any part of the world. There are research trying to make a relationship between leadership and personality. There are a lot of research. Very few leadership with critical thinking, almost nothing. A little bit leadership with emotional intelligence, but never a multivariate analysis in which you have three independent variables on leadership. The results is a very interesting one. I am going to show you these results. Where did I leave my... Yeah, I always forget it. And do you follow this, Carmen?
If we cannot identify the time when we were born, if we have genes to be a leader, so maybe we need to focus on the process of being a leader.
The idea...
We are going to discover if people...
Yeah, that's a good question. Your personality is going to be developed according to your genes. You don't know. You are not going never.
As you said before, maybe a person who has the genes to be a leader, maybe is not going to, never is going to be under the thing that is going to trigger his or her leadership. So it's going to, he or she is going to live life forever without.
Oh yeah, without not knowing. Yeah, of course.
So the process of leader and leader is.
It's important. It's important. And you will find leadership behaviors because you had genes that supported this development. That is the important part. And we see it's a large sample that has been through this research. More than 5,000 MBA students. Not only in Lima, but in the 9 cities that we teach inside Peru, because at the beginning we were thinking Lima's guys are going to be better leaders than the Arequipa guys. No, that is not true. Or the jungle guys, because we're teaching Tarapoto is a jungle city. No, there is no relationship between where were you born and the leadership styles. Impressive. I will show you the results now. But I don't know if you follow the thesis that we are proposing. I have made this speech in different organizations, in the MBA roundtable last year in Seattle. No, we did it in Tampa, in Florida, and many schools are trying to follow this type of research for trying to explain leadership in their students.
So, so leadership is a dependent variable.
Yeah.
And is the measure behavioral items?
Mm-hmm.
And is it self or multi?
Very good question. Very good question. All these questionnaires, especially these two, are self and rater. Are self and rater. And you can do 360 degrees measurement with a superior, a follower, a peer, and yourself. But that's the most difficult part of the research, because in a student, we don't have a superior or a follower. We have peers, but they don't know very much in the leadership style. And most of research has been focusing on self styles, which is arguable. Most journals do not want to be purely self. But my proposition is that they are mature people. They are not looking for a promotion. They are not looking to be climbing in the ladder of organization. They are starting an MBA program. And I will tell you when we measure these skills during the program. Okay, that's a good question. Those are the 4 instruments that we have chosen. There are a lot of instruments. But according to the review of the literature, we found that these 4 are the best ones. The first one is called the NEO. Comes from neuroticism, extraversion, and openness to new experience. Personality inventory revised. I'm going to explain what is that. That is to measure personality. The second one, the Watson and Glaser critical thinking appraisal. That is for measuring critical thinking, of course. The third one, the Meyer-Salovey-Caruso emotional intelligence test to measure emotional intelligence. And the last one, the MLQ by Bruce Abolio and Bernard Bass to measure leadership styles. You see, these are the personality, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and leadership instruments. The first and fourth, you have self and rater. The second and third, there is no only but self, because nobody is going to know your critical thinking or your emotional intelligence. It's very difficult to be measured by others. What is the NEOPIR? These 2 guys, Costa and McCrae, are medical doctors from Johns Hopkins University. And they developed in 1992 this questionnaire about the 5 domains of personality. We have 5 domains. We don't know them. But we have to measure our domains to know our personality. And personality is the one and most stable trait in human beings. When you reach a level of personality, you will keep it forever, up to the day of your death. It's almost impossible to change personality traits during your life. These 2 guys started doing this excuse me. And the 5 domains of personality are those. Very complicated words to be pronounced, especially for me and for non-English speaking people, especially the last one, no? Conscientiousness. No? It sounds as a buzzword. But these 5 domains, I try to push the lesser, but the 5 domains are comprised by 6 facets and 8 questions. This is a large questionnaire, very, very, very lengthy questionnaire, 240 questions, but very, very easy questions. Is to 1 to 5, no? Likert scale, no? 1, totally agree, neutral, partially disagree, totally disagree, no? And at the end, you don't have a final score for personality, but you have 1 final value per domain. No final score for personality. There is no final score. What indicates the personality domains measurements? If you have a high score in neuroticism, unfortunately, you are not a leader. If you are a neurotic, but the important part of this questionnaire is you don't know, because the questions are all mixed. You don't know what they are measuring, no? And I don't explain this as I am doing now before applying the questionnaires, no? Because otherwise they are going to have a bias. They don't know, they have no idea about what questionnaires are measuring. The first one, you have to get a low score. Extraversion, very important. You have to be an extraverted person to be a leader. Not the most important one, but important. The most important one is this one. The most important one. Very low scores we found. Very low scores, unfortunately. Cheers. Very low scores. What is the meaning of that? This. Persons with high score in openness to new experience are those that are challenging permanently the status quo. They want change. They want to change. They are not happy with the current situation. Fourthly, agreeableness. Not important. Not important. Many agreeable persons are not good leaders. The other way around. They are normally not good leaders. No? And the second in importance is this one. That means that you are a very responsible person. You are always on time, always producing results. You are very, very responsible. That means that you are going to find 5 scores in your persons. And those scores will tell you who are. We never know the results of each person. Never. It's confidential. The results are provided in an envelope, confidential, closed, sealed. What we know is the sample result. The sample result. We never know. By codes, there is a group of psychologists that work with me, and they produce the evaluation, the assessment of the questionnaires, and at the end they produce a result that is being received only by the person, by the student in this case of, and this is being produced when they start the MBA, the first day of classes, the first day. When they arrive to the school, first day, welcome, we are happy to have you here, kisses, and we produce the questionnaires. We explain what they have to do, and they spend almost 1 day filling those questionnaires, because there are 4 questionnaires. This is the longest one, 240 questions. And at the end, we produce the paperwork. And we provide the same questionnaires the last day of the MBA program, 26 months after. And we see the results. And according to the beginning and to the end, we see if the MBA program improve a little bit the skills of the students. And according to the results, we change the curriculum. We are moving to the soft skills. At the beginning, our program, 80% hard skills, 20% soft skills. Then 70-30, then 60-40. Now we are 50-50. We prefer to do entrepreneurship, strategy, negotiations, communications, no? Critical thinking, no? Industrial psychology, no? Than to do a lot of finance, a lot of marketing, a lot of operations, because you can buy a book and read the book and learn by yourself. No, you need the help, of course. No? We are not going to get rid of those subjects because our core competence courses in our MBA program. But it's very unusual to find a school in which soft skills are focused more or similar to hard skill courses. This is Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Costa is still alive. He's still at Johns Hopkins. Paul Costa is his name. I don't know about McRae. I don't know if he's still alive or not. And this is what it's all about. Was designed to provide an overview of personality in normal conditions in relation to clinical counseling and educational situations. Model is based on the personality of the 5 domains. 5 domains, 6 facets per domain, 8 questions per facet, total 240 items, 1 final value per domain, no final score for personality. That is what we measure. This is those are the 5 domains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the facets in each. You read the facets and they explain by themselves. You can do this self and rater, but self is most convenient because raters, they don't know you unless you are in a company in which raters knows you. The most critical is critical thinking. This is the most critical subject. Very, very few schools are involved in critical thinking. They claim also. Now is the fashion, claiming that we produce critical thinkers, and we don't know about that. This is one of the questionnaires. Watson and Glaser are 2 professors from Columbia University in New York. I don't know if they are still alive. They started producing this in 1980s, in the 80s. And in that you have 1 final score for critical thinking. This is a very interesting questionnaire. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not a Likert scale questionnaire. You read full statements and you have to say what is being written, what for, what do you need that for? And it's a very, very interesting questionnaire in which you are going to measure these 5 sub-tests. Those are the name. 5 sub-tests. Inference, recognition of assumptions, deduction, interpretation, and evaluation of arguments. And this is my model, this is mine, you know, in which this is very important when you do a doctoral program, especially the subject of fallacies and arguments. This is a model that I produced after reading all these articles by these guys. And the critical thinking is a process in which persons listen, people see, people read, and how they combine this under a critical analysis in order to get a critical acting, a critical writing, and a critical speaking. We are used to be memoristic in high school, at the university, and even sometimes in our MBA programs. We have to try to avoid that, to make people read and to let them explain you what was written for. What are you going to use about that writing in your future activities? And that is quite important and the most important subject in a business school MBA program. Number 3, Meyer, Salovey, and Caruso.
Before we move on,
Yes.
I would just like to say, I think we would support that 200%. The half of Thunderbird that I run is the executive side, so we spend a lot of time with companies. And there's an interesting thing we find in the last, since 2008 as well, between developing markets and developed. And it starts with a need, our leaders in the developing markets need better strategic thinking skills. But when we peel it back, it's because they don't have very good decision-making skills. But then when we peel it back, it's because they don't have very good thinking skills.
Yeah.
It's because they have big gaps in some of these core capability areas.
Absolutely.
So it all starts here.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is a major task for business schools. A major task. And for the corporate world, and for the university system, and for the high school system. This is the main change in education.
It
Starts in high school. Otherwise, you are going to have memoristic people, you are going to have people with very poor decision making. No? Because this is the final word among all these written, to have sound decision making. Number 3, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, you know, many people claims that Daniel Goleman was the creator of emotional intelligence. That is not exactly true. These guys were the ones that started the emotional intelligence studies. No? Meyer, Salovey, and Caruso. Those are 3 guys. Peter Salovey has been named president of Yale University last week. Peter Salovey, the second one, is the new president of Yale University. And this is a very interesting questionnaire, not a Likert scale questionnaire. You are going to see a lot of pictures, a lot of photographs. And when you start checking, the questionnaire has 8 areas: faces, pictures, facilitation, sensations, changes, blends, emotion management, and emotional relations. That finished with 4 branches: perceiving emotions, facilitating thought, understanding emotions, managing emotions. 2 final areas: experiential, emotional intelligence quotient, strategic, emotional intelligence quotient, at 1 final score for emotional intelligence. 1 final score. Yeah. This is quite interesting because those are the 4 branches, these ones over here. It's better, I can follow from the top to bottom. And this is a skill-based scale that measures how well people perform tasks and solve emotional problems, rather than relying on subjective assessment of a person over their perceived emotional skills. 80 items. This is different to the famous IQ, no? The intelligent quotient. No? This is emotional. How do you use your emotions to make decisions? How do you use your emotions to lead? How do you use your emotions to produce change? That is quite important, and this is completely different than the classical IQ test for intelligence only. This is emotional intelligence. And those are the 3 independent variables. No? Watson-Glaser critical thinking, Meyer-Salovey-Caruso multi-factor leadership questionnaire, the NOP, Watson-Glaser and Meyer-Salovey, and all of them are related to leadership, that is the dependent variable. We'll go now to leadership. 1978 was the year in which the world was changed due to this guy, James McGregor Burns, his book Leadership, a Pulitzer Prize winner. No? He studied, I think, 12 presidents of the United States. It's a thick book. And at the end, fortunately, it's at the beginning of the book, no? Not at the end of the book, because otherwise you have to read the whole book to end up with these 4 important pages that are at the very beginning of the book. They say there are 2 types of leadership, transformational and transactional. That's it. And that started an avalanche of research. A lot of people what is the meaning of that? And this was at the beginning of the book. The crisis of leadership today is not familiar today now. 1978, that means 34 years ago, is the mediocrity or irresponsibility of so many of the men and women in power, but leadership rarely rises to the full need for it. Impressive. That was written by Peter Drucker in 1954. 1954. That is 58 years ago. Jero.
So what do you think what do you think from your vast experience, we're still struggling with this 50, 60 years later? So many brilliant people, so many leaders out there, are we still struggling?
They never give attention to this. Never. Never read them, never really understood what they wanted to tell us. That's a pity. And now, the practice of management is being read when it was produced in 1954. And this guy now is being read when he produced this in 1978. There are 2 types of leadership, transformational and transactional. But the real leadership is the transformational one. What is the meaning of transformation? This. Translating vision into reality, long term, depending on the industry, according to the culture, having a strategic mindset, and to make it transformational. That is the explanation of Burns in 1978. That was the transaction. Transactional is the usual word to doing business. If you support me, I will name you minister. If you support my campaign, you will be the president of the bank. No? If you support me, I will promote you. This is transactional. And sometimes it's unethical. Most of the times. Not sometimes, most of the times. No? But in business schools teach you to be a transactional leader. Most of the courses are leading us into a transactional. No, I don't mean unethical behavior, no, I don't mean that. If you follow the manual of functions, you will be promoted. That is transactional. If you don't follow the manual of functions, you will be fired. This is the organizational chart. You are here. You have to follow these ones. Otherwise, you are out. It's transactional. When we prize our children, we are transaction. If you have a good behavior, I give you a gift. It's transaction. You have to behave well because it's your duty, your responsibility, not because you are going to receive a prize. And this is what, and then these two guys showed up, Bernard Bass and Bruce Abolio. Bruce Abolio was the guy that I showed you. He's a relatively young guy. He's under 60. Bernard Bass died. Bernard Bass died 2 years ago. He was at SUNY State University in New York. And they wrote a terrific book on leadership, and they developed the questionnaire, MLQ, Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire. There are another behavior, transformational the first one, transactional the second one, and the third one, not being mentioned by Burns, but did mention by Bass and Abolio, was the passive avoidant behavior leadership. Passive avoidant is laissez-faire, laissez-passer. Those guys that arrive into his office or her office and say, okay, close the door, I am a very busy schedule, I have to read the newspaper. If something is wrong and there is a fire in the company, you let me know. Otherwise, don't worry, the waters will reach the stable level. Close the door, and that's it. You find a lot of those guys. A lot. They call the passive avoidant leaders. How do we measure this? By the MLQ, the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire. And in a book called Leadership Beyond Expectations, written by Bernard Bass in 1985, he developed the traits by which you are considered either a transformational or a transactional or a passive avoidant leader. 9 areas. Those are the 9 areas. When you are filling this questionnaire, that is a very simple one, 45 questions, no more. You have 5 areas of transformational leadership. Idealized influence. How are you an ideal for your follower? The second one, this idealized influence has 2 parts, attributes and behaviors. If you are an ideal to your followers because of your attributes, if you are a leader, an ideal for your followers because of your behavior. The second one, the inspirational motivation. How do you inspire? How do you motivate your followers to achieve these important positive changes? And the most important one is the intellectual stimulation. That is called the trait, intellectual stimulations. Best from people, maximum effort, you know, challenging the status quo, and relative to openness to new experience in the personality questionnaire. And we have found that these questionnaires interrelate. It's a very complicated statistical analysis, factorial analysis, chi-square, no, t-student, no, clustered grouping analysis, logistic regressions. No? We use the SPSS as a tool for processing the information. And the last one is individual consideration. These 5, because the first one has 2, are the composition of transformational leadership. These 2 of transactional leadership, contingent reward, this is important. Most of our lives we are behaving as contingent reward. Most of our lives. Your boy, I give you gift. You are making a transaction. If you are a good guy, I promote you. Transaction. If you have a good test, I give you an A+. Transaction. It's good. It's not bad. But we have to be a mixture on transformational and transactional, and try to have 0 here. 0 here. It's impossible to be fully transformational or to be fully transactional. Most people are a mixture of transformational and transactional. What we are doing, we started this research in 2004. We are measuring these attributes at the beginning of the program. The first day of classes, they receive the 4 questionnaires. We provide an environment that is quiet, good temperature, not noise, no? And we provide one by one the questionnaires, with some breaks between one and the other. This is the leadership behaviors is the dependent variable, the 5 domains of personality, the final score of critical thinking, and the final score of emotional intelligence. Even we do structural equations for this. And then that means that we have 2 dependent variables, transformational and transactional, and 7 independent variables. I explained this to you at the beginning and at the end of the program. When I did this presentation, we had 3,809 students. And what were the confounding variables? We used the demographic variables. The first was gender, if you were male or female. The second one, age, ranges of age, less than 30, between 30 and 40, between 40 and 50 years old, more than 50 years old. The third one was the university in which you studied your undergrad. Was a public, a private? What profession did you have when you started the program? You were a lawyer, you were an engineer, you were an economist, you were a biologist, a medical doctor. Then in what city you are studying the program? Is Lima or outside Lima? Then the years of experience that you have in the corporate world. And those variables were the demographic variables that were the moderating variables between the independent and the dependent variables. And the results were very interesting. 68% of the sample was in Lima, 32% of the sample were in programs that we teach outside Lima, and the composition was a little bit like this. 1,000 women, almost 2,800 men, and this is the ratio that we have in all our programs. Unfortunately, we do our best to improve the attendance of women into our programs, but never in 12 years we have reached the line of 25%, 3 to 1. The mean was 33 years old, experience average 9 years old, coming from the best universities, the Ivy League, 1,000, from other private university, 1,000, and from public university, about 1,800. The predominant career in our MBAs is the engineers, 2,000 engineers, about 1,400 between economics, business administration, accounting, and about 400 others. Others means medical doctors, lawyers, biologists, and historians. That's a very nice composition, very nice demographics. That is used to change our curriculum. And I will say the following as the final remarks of this first session. We found no difference between women and men, male and female. You can be a leader, both. It's an urban legend to say that men are best leaders. No, not at all. To say that women are best leaders, not at all. You can be a good leader if you are male or female. Second, the city, no difference. You can study all over the places, in public or private universities. In Peru, the public universities are not very good. Unfortunately, the government does not support them. The best education is in private universities, also in private business schools, but we didn't find any difference between public and private. We didn't find any difference in profession. You could be a good leader if you are an engineer or if you are a lawyer. Where did we find differences? Age. Age was very important. The older you are, the better leader you become. Experience, quite important. The more experienced you are, the best leader you are performing. That means and supports the idea that leaders could be made. And we are doing now a longitudinal study at the beginning and at the end of the MBA program. That amount of people is now much larger. We are about 5,000 students that have gone through this research, and a lot of data came out from these results that is very helpful in general for our academic purposes. I think we are on time to make a break, and if you have any question, please ask.
Yeah, I agree there is no difference between male and female leaders.
Mm-hmm.
They have the same skills. But I think for female leaders, there is another thing, this another environment that maybe makes them not as successful as a leader, because they have families, they have some responsibilities that they need to lead with them. And they may cause some difficulties to get successful.
Yeah, this is important, no? You know, in spite of that, we have a lot of women that has been pregnant during the MBA program, no? and deliver. You know? And they were happy. And they continue studying, continue working, and continue keeping eye on their children. No? And we had very odd situations. We had a problem, we had father and son studying the MBA together. Father and son. Yeah? We had the twins. We had a lot of couples, husband and wife, no? And during the thesis defense, a lady was at the end of the labor process, almost came into the defense hanging, no? And when she was making her presentation, he started the pains. And there was an ambulance outside because he wanted to be there. I want to make the defense of my thesis, no? And in one moment, say, we stop please. And we took her out and continued the process of dissertation. And after 15 minutes, somebody knocked the door. Was the lady coming out and finished the presentation, no? And at the end, she went out and went to the hospital. And during the graduation, she came with the baby. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you done any regression analyses?
Yeah.
And is critical thinking the big predictor? Was it elements of personality, or what's the big contributor?
The conscientiousness and extraversion.
Those are
the big predictors. Very low critical thinking. Very low, unfortunately, openness to the experience. Very low.
That's very interesting.
Very low. That makes us what to do, because those are the two most important ones. Good are conscientiousness and extraversion. They are good, but not good enough as openness to new experience and critical thinking. And critical thinking was the poorest. Terrible.
It'd be very interesting to use something like our global mindset inventory.
Yeah.
As a kind of variable, see if that your openness is possible.
I didn't know about that. I saw yesterday that you were handing out the results of the... I didn't know about that test, but it seemed to me very interesting. We can share some...
The openness will pop at the top of that.
Yeah, we can share some experience about that. Yeah.
That's really, really very good. Thank you for spending the time. Really, the rigor is important.
Oh, yeah.
We spend a lot of time here, as the number of people will know that the global mindset inventory is one of the few global instruments that ACSB will allow schools to use to show pre and post. And what you have is much more rigorous
Yeah.
change model for showing improvement, which is fantastic.
And we are trying to introduce next year ethics as another questionnaire, as an independent variable. That will be waters a little bit muddy, but we need to introduce ethics. We didn't find a good, reliable questionnaire, but there are some. There are some. These 4 questionnaires are fully proved that they are very good ones.
I think it carries cultural context.
Yeah.
But these are very good.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Coffee break. Thank you very much. Well, we had 2 interesting hours during this morning discussing leadership and the importance of leadership on organization and how to measure this important trait in human beings. But one of the subjects that arose from the discussion was the subject of culture. Can you be a leader anywhere in the world? I don't think so. It's very difficult to deal with different types of cultures. Very difficult. We thought this morning that leaders are strategic-minded persons. Those that transform a vision into reality. But there was a variable that is quite important, that is culture. And we are going to speak a little bit about globalization. We are probably in the most important school in global education, that is Thunderbird. But what is the meaning of globalization? Do we really understand what is globalization? And when I start this presentation, I put this. It's a world map. I was a little bit frustrated yesterday when I saw in the Auditorium 5 a world map that is mutilated because the map finished here. This part didn't appear. And that part is very important. It's another continent. It's the continent of the future, the Antarctica. And makes the world divided by two parts exactly by the equatorial line. This is the equatorial line. Unfortunately, this doesn't work with this. You see, you can, but in here, it doesn't work. This is the equator that exactly divides the world in two parts, north and south. What do you see in this world map? Jorge, what do you see?
The north part is has the majority of the land, for example, the countries probably in the north are the developed, the richest nations too.
Yeah. We can see that north is much populated than the south. 90% of the population of the world is in the northern hemisphere. 90%. Only 10% in the south. What is in the south? Almost nothing.
Resources.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But if you see in the south, there is part of South America, a little bit of Africa, and Australia and New Zealand. And this huge mass of ice. And we cannot live in that mass of ice now, Augusto.
In the southern part, I think there's more, most resources.
Oh yeah.
I think there's a lot of Northern part of Russia and Canada also. I think in the future it will be south.
Do you see the asymmetry of the world? Do you see how asymmetric is the world? If you go to 45 degrees north, 45 degrees north, so it doesn't work, 45 degrees is over there. What do you have there? You have the triad. You know what is the triad? What is the triad? Huh? Are the three economic blocks most important in the world. The first economic bloc is the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. That is up there. Canada, United States, and Mexico. If you move along, you will find the Economic European Community. And if you move along, you find Asian. Asia is the association of Southeast Asiatic countries. That is where the money in the world is. That is money. Money, money, money. What do you see? 45 degrees south. 45 degrees, 45 north. What do you see in 45 degrees south? What do you find here? Water. Salt water. Salt water. It's impressive. It is impressive how the concentration of the world is at 45 degrees north latitude. And all the economic power is concentrated at that latitude. It's impressive. If you go 50 degrees north, you will find London. London. What is in 50 degrees south? More water. More water. What's going on here? You know, we have 7 billion people, a little bit more now. 7 billion people in the world. That makes 6.3 billion in the north at only 0.7 billion in the south. And what do you need people for? People, markets. People, markets. And you have to be where the markets are. Otherwise, you are not able to do business. What else do you find in this world map, Fernando?
So much water.
So much water.
And water is the future.
Water is not only the future. Much, much more water than land. 70% of the world map is water, and only 0.3 is land. Then the world is composed by water. What do we need water for, Sandri?
To drink.
Yeah, that's all water. It's impossible to be drunk. Ships. Ships. The maritime commerce is the most important part of international trade. Water is quite important. 95% of the trade of goods are being done by sea. Only a small 5% are being made by air. Because you cannot move 200 tons of crude oil in a plane. It's impossible, no? But you can move 200,000 tons in one trip from Callao in Peru to Shanghai in China. It takes you 40 days, of course, but it's impossible to be done by air. It will be forever and extremely costly. The sea is the most important way of communications in the world, has been, is, and will be. But what do you notice about sea?
It's around every continent.
It's around every continent. Yeah. What else? What else do you notice? the Pacific Ocean is almost 3 times the size of the Atlantic Ocean. And the Atlantic Ocean is twice the Indic Ocean. But not only that, the seas are not communicated. There is no communication. You will tell me, no, but we have a communication here. Go there. Go there to see what happens. Oh, by here. Go there. What happens? You will be destroyed by the sea. Then you have to trade inside your ocean. Inside the Pacific Ocean, inside the Atlantic Ocean, inside the Indic Ocean. But we have 2 doors, 2 important doors. One is the Panama Canal, and the other is the Suez Canal. But they allow only 70,000 tons ships, nothing else. Panama has a constraint now, 70,000 tons. And it's very expensive, very, very expensive to cross the Panama Canal, and you have sometimes to wait days. Suez Canal is easier. It's not a man-made canal as it is the Panama Canal. And you know, the altitude of the Atlantic Ocean is 7 meters and makes 21 feet higher than the Pacific Ocean. How is it possible? There is not a flood. No, because of the magnetic situation of the Earth. No? It is important to understand the world map, to understand what's going on there. If we speak of international trade, if we speak of international commerce, if we speak of globalization, that is quite important. And what is now very important is this mass of ice. You have to be member of the Antarctic Treaty, because that is going to be the continent of the future. But what future? 1,000 years? Yes, 1,000 years. It's tomorrow. 1,000 years is tomorrow for the world history. You know, we have 10 million years. 1,000 years is nothing. And there is a lot of richness there. We have oil, we have minerals, we have a shrimp, a small shrimp that is called krill, that could provide food for the whole population of the earth for years. It's interesting to know all this because this is the way the world works. Then you will see these lines, the polar circle and the polar circle there, 65 degrees north and 65 degrees south. After those latitudes, you will have 6 months of day and 6 months of night. There is no choice. And there are 2 another circles very important, the Cancer tropic and the Capricornio tropic. And you will not find developed countries in this area. All the developed countries are above of the tropic, Cancer tropic. Why? Why don't you have developed countries?
Australia?
That's a good question. And only a piece of Australia. Only this piece of Australia, and not exactly, yeah, but you know the most important cities of Australia are here. Yeah, and Singapore also is an exception. Singapore is here. Yeah, those are exceptions. Why we don't have developed countries in those between those tropics. Because of the weather. There are very, very hot countries, very warm weathers, and they prefer to go to the beach and to have a beer instead of go working. No? In the north latitudes, you have to work, otherwise you get frozen. You are lucky to be in Phoenix. But if you go to Canada, you get frozen, no? All year long. If you are not moving, and I don't say in Russia, because that is more complicated, because the Siberia is in these latitudes, no? And you know, this 30% of the world is not possible to be lived. Only 15% of the land is possible for people to live in. Because most of that land is either desertic or ice or jungles. For example, if you go to South America, all this is jungle. All this. Nobody lives there. Probably there are few people, but it's impossible to make a road, even an airport. It's almost impossible. And you have to know very well the world to start discussing international business. This is the population of the world, 7,052 million inhabitants. The square 500 million square kilometers, only this 29%, almost 30, is earth and the rest is sea, very complicated. And the northern hemisphere is 3 times more land than the southern hemisphere, 3 times. This is the population of the world. 90% is in the north, 10% in the south, but out of the 6.3 billion, 2.6 billion are in China and in India. And it is expected by 2050, half of the population of the world will be between China and India. Half of the population of the world in only 2 countries. Wow. And if you add up the BRIC countries, you will have probably 75% of the population with Brazil, Russia, no, and India and China, no? And South Africa, BRICS. Now it's BRICS. Yes. This is the situation. Then how do you care to be in South America if you have only that amount of people? This is not a very attractive market. But in Latin America we have very good, very rich in natural resources. It's going to be the most important source of natural resources for the world in the 50 years to come. You see the difference between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. It's impressive. The size of the Pacific basin. And now there is an association, a very important association called the APEC. The Asia-Pacific Economic Community. Asian Pacific Economic Community, composed by 21 economies. I don't say countries, because not all of them are countries. 21 economies. And this is a very, very interesting situation for countries that are nearby the Pacific Ocean. But the distances are huge. In this study, that was a basic study that I did, I composed, the 4 quadrants you can see the 4 quadrants of the Pacific Ocean. And it's interesting because in this quadrant, you have the Asian countries. You know, Singapore has been #1 in competitiveness last year. The first time that the United States was beaten by a very small country, a tiny country. You know what is the size of Singapore? Who knows what is the size? How small?
Maybe like Tunis? The half part of Uruguay.
Less than that. It's only 150 square kilometers. This is a tiny country. #1 in competitiveness in the world. The GDP per capita most important, more than $60,000 per person, which is average income. It's very high. Tiny country. The other tiny country is #3, Hong Kong. Is same size, 150 kilometers. If you compare with Peru, that is not a large country. Peru is not a large country. Peru has 1,250,000 square kilometers. And our GDP per capita is 1/3 of the one in Singapore. It's very sad to tell you that, but it is a reality. In this quadrant, we have only 2 countries, Australia and New Zealand. You see the size of Australia? Put Australia on top of Europe. 5 times more than whole European countries. See the size of Europe? And this is the size of Australia. Australia is larger than the United States. And you know how many people are in Australia? 30 million. It's larger than the United States, and the United States you have 300 million people. 300 million compared to 30. And most of the countries, either desertic or kangaroos. The whole cities are here in the Pacific Basin, and 1 or 2 here. The rest is, it's a huge country. It's a developed country, as important as New Zealand. But do you see the situation of New Zealand? How do you arrive to New Zealand? If you want to go there, it's very close to Peru, but there is no plane that flies here. It will finish the bottom of the sea in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's impressive, the asymmetry of the world, and to understand very well what is the meaning of that asymmetry. No? It's impressive. The Atlantic Ocean is a more friendly ocean. Distances are much less than the ones in the Pacific Ocean. And it's very interesting to study this. And you have the other quadrant here, where the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, that makes Canada, United States, and Mexico huge economic community, the most important one in the world, without any doubt. And if you go to our beautiful quadrant, in our beautiful quadrant we have nothing. Only 3 countries, Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. But what is interesting is the location of Peru. Peru should be the center of gravity for South America related to the Pacific Ocean, and it is not, unfortunately, because the ports are not competitive ports, and Chile is gaining some advantage in that, in spite of being in a more difficult geographical situation, to be a link with Brazil, with Argentina. No? It's interesting to understand and to get involved with the meaning of globalization, because this is quite important nowadays, because this is the world in which we live, and we are going to live until the end of our days. And what is going on in the next 50 or 100 years, we don't know. We don't know. But this is important to be a member of the Antarctic Treaty, because we are going to be owners of this if you are a member of the treaty. To be a member, you have to make an expedition every year, to have a scientific base, to make research, and if you do that, in 50 or 100 years, you are going to have part of that territory to be used for your country. There are countries as Norway. You know, Norway is up in the north. They are members of the Antarctic Treaty, because Norway has seen always the sea as the main sources of income, and it's a very maritime country, as you see all the transatlantic ships that move passengers are made in Oslo or in Norway, and cover most of the seas in the world. And they live of the ocean, because they don't live where they are, because they are in a very complicated geographical situation. No? That is the explanation of that. The Atlantic Basin. And now we go into culture. I heard yesterday when you were in classes to talk about this. This is a very important subject nowadays. We have to understand the world, we have to understand cultures, because those are very important for international business. This guy, Gerd Hofstede, a professor that is still alive of Maastricht University, made a research in the 1980s, Gerd Hofstede, and wrote a book after that research, in which he grouped the countries by the influence of the context. The influence of the context. No? And this research was very interesting, because he said culture is more often a source of conflict than of synergy. Cultural differences are a nuisance at best and often a disaster. And he drew 4 dimensions in the 1980s. 10 years ago, he introduced a new dimension, the number 5, and the results were the same. The first dimension was power distance, how people is far away from the power, closer. Uncertainty avoidance, the risk aversion of people in making decisions. Third, if the culture was more individualistic or more collectivistic. And the fourth, masculinity and femininity. That doesn't have nothing to do with women and men. The cultures that are more feminine are more related to relationships, and these are more related to goals, achievements. No? And according to these dimensions, he grouped countries in clusters, a lot of clusters. And there was a spectrum, a continuum, that went from the low context cultures to the high content cultures. What is the meaning of that? The influence of the context on cultures. Low, that means that the culture is not being influenced by the context. With high, we mean that the context influences a lot on the culture. And according to the four dimensions, you see the first four, these are highly power distance, high, instead of highly, high power distance, high uncertainty avoidance, collectivism, and femininity. And the other were low power distance, low uncertainty avoidance, individualism, and masculinity. And what countries are they? We will see those. What is the meaning of high and low context? No? The idea is the way cultures are being treated. For example, if you meet a Dutch guy or a German, and we want to make business with a German and say, okay, shake hands, and that's it. If you go to a Chinese, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and never reach an agreement. Because the context influences too much in Chinese people in difference with a German or a Dutch person. And that is the meaning of low and high context. This is the type of communication. Yesterday we were discussing during the lunch that there are signs that you can use in any language. If you say this, what are you meaning? I want to eat. No, I want to eat. No? And this is in Spanish, in Russian, in Swedish, or in French, or in whatever language you want. And this analysis is finished with this group of countries. In one side, the German countries, Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. In the other side, the Eastern European countries, Slovakia, Slovenia, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, and very close to them, Russia, Korea, and China. The Koreans are moving in this direction. And in here you have the Nordic, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, the Anglo-Saxon, South Africa, Ireland, UK, New Zealand, Canada, USA, and just in the middle, the Latin Americans. Latin Americans are neither from here nor from there, just in the middle. No? That's very smart. They are very smart. Not here, yeah, if you want to be here. This is the way you have to understand cultures, because the style of leadership that you are going to use, depending on the country in which you are in, or if you are going to make an agreement, a negotiation, you have to understand in what location are every country. The most interesting countries were these ones. They don't belong to any group. These 5 countries do not belong to any group. Japan, Turkey, India, Greece, and Israel. They didn't group. The cluster analysis that was performed didn't group them with any of the clusters that they call the non-aligned countries. They have a special way of doing business, every one of them, fully independent. It's very difficult to understand Japanese or Jewish people, Israelis, or people from India, no? But it's easier to deal with the low context cultures and very complicated to deal with high context cultures. Yesterday, I heard the explanation of the professors during the classes that you have at Auditorium 5, and I wanted to use this for today's presentation in order to understand well what is the world about and also the cultures. The new economy. This globalization process is bringing the new economy, and we have to understand it because we are going to live in the new economy for at least 20 or 30 more years. Global breakdowns, you know, the European situation, the situation of Greece, of Spain, of Ireland, you know, the broken of huge companies, Lehman Brothers, the euro compared to the dollar, or compared with the Latin American currencies, or the yen in Japan, and we are going to face very, very interesting situations in the years to come. Very interesting situations. The oil crisis, the BRIC economies, no? Agriculture, mining, fishing, and this is what is coming about. Now we have to speak of geostrategic order. Years ago, we used geopolitics. That is not anymore. We forget about geopolitics. Now, geostrategic. That means that the position of your country in the world has to be analyzed in order to make decisions of international business, to know what countries are going to be your partners, and what countries are going to be, I don't say your enemies, but you are not going to deal with them because you have conflict of interest. We were talking yesterday about the dispute of Chile and Peru. No? Probably most of you don't know that we are in the International Court of The Hague, and the decision is going to be made in days. You say, what is the conflict between Peru and Chile? The Peruvian coast is like this, and the Chilean coast is like this. That is the situation. No? And you have a very cold current that comes from the Antarctic, and a very warm current that comes from Australia. And these currents meet here and makes the El Niño current be created. And this is a lot of fish because of this combination of cold and hot waters. And what is the dispute all about? Chile says, okay, the border is this, the sea border. And Peru says, no, it's this. Perpendicular to our country, perpendicular of Chile. And this is a lot of water. And this is 50 years of dispute. And Peru was very kind and told the Chileans, okay, not this for you, not this for me, we are going to make this. And Chile says, no, I don't want that. For me, it's this. We do not accept this, we do not accept this. And we are in the court now. And the oral phase of the dispute is going to start next week. And the pronunciation that we are going to have is going to be in March or April next year. And all the world is disputing things, no? And this is a complicated subject, and this is what is called the new economy. The newest geostrategic order the new technologies, communications, information systems, automatization, robotics, the new business environment. We are dealing with the globalization process, and also the new type of organizations in which we don't have a hierarchical organization and more flat ones. Fernando.
I have some question. I recently have been in Europe for a couple of years, and I have been searching some information about geostrategic. And there are some university, school of business, and also in the armed forces. They are talking in a new concept about geoeconomics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that
it's the same.
It is the same, but there are two schools that are putting in the same table the two terms.
Yeah.
Which one do you like better?
Absolutely. I will say that geostrategic is related to, this is a geostrategic situation, but what is behind the economics?
Yeah.
And everything is money in this world. Everything is money. There is nothing that is not being related to money. We say religion, money. Love, money. Everything is related to money. Don't tell me a different thing because it's not true. Everything is related to money since the history of humanity, hundreds, thousands of years ago. But it's a good question. Geoeconomic could be a more specific way of. We are in a world of knowledge. Nowadays, the production function is not only labor and capital, but now it's knowledge. Knowledge is the most important economic factor, production factor. Now we are living in a digital world. Everything is bits. We are living in a virtual economy. We have e-learning, we have e-procurement, we have e-health, we have e-business, we have e-commerce. Now we live a molecular economy. Once the world was trying to integrate, now we are trying to disintegrate the huge corporations because they don't work anymore as huge corporations. No, we have a more molecular economy. The internet working, due to the new technologies, we are able to be linked, no? And finally, not finally, but this is a way to disappear the intermediaries, because intermediaries makes a lot of money and make products to the final consumer a much more expensive one. Convergence, if you have the ability to do things, if you have a way to make computing and the way to communicate, you can do an e-book and sell the book by yourself. You don't have to go to a publisher. That will be very costly. The publisher will make all the money, but you can do it by yourself because of the advantages that the new economy is providing us. A word of innovation, now it's called the prosumer. You don't know where the producing process finishes and where the consuming process starts. It's a mixture. You start producing and start consuming at the same time. Immediate, this is an immediate economy. It's a click. When you go to Amazon.com, you go click, and that's it. And you receive a package, your credit card is being debited, and that's it. You don't have to go to any store. You buy a book, you buy a refrigerator, you buy even a car, not even seeing it. The world is a globalization. The globe is the market. And this is a discordance world in which many people is going to be out of job. The unemployment is going to grow, unfortunately, I have to tell you, because of all of this. Is good in many things, but it's terrible for persons, and you have to be very well prepared in order to face this new economy with success. What is the role of business schools and MBA graduates? To provide a high quality education, to provide leadership skills, to provide different type of attitudes to go into business with much more probability of success, because there is no place for all of us. Some strategic ideas and conclusions. We need to evaluate the interaction between countries. What countries are our friends? We cannot say that Chile and Peru are friends. Not at all. It has an historical dispute, even that we have a lot of investment in Chile and Chile has a lot of investment in Peru, but we are not friends. Historically, we had a war 150 years ago, and it is still going on. That is the way the world is. We need to exploit natural resources. We are very rich in natural resources, South America, but very difficult to exploit them because of the geography. We have mountains, we have jungle, we don't have ways of communication, and it's too complicated to link cities in that situation, and that makes very, very difficult to exploit our natural resources. Then, a proper industrial development is needed to produce competitive goods and services, mainly for external trade. We have to use the sea, the maritime and related branches. It's important, some strategic ideas. We have very deep waters. This is a privilege that not so many countries has, very deep waters. But the ports are very, very old. We need to improve the quality of the port system to link the ports with roads into the territory in order to exploit those natural resources. The opportunities of the Pacific and Atlantic Basin. Negotiation is crucial for alliances and investment. To develop a strategic alliance is crucial now. You have to. You need partners. Why to be alone? And a proper capitalization of the opportunities offered by the international organization is crucial. We were talking this yesterday about the Sunderberg for Good that is being done in Peru, no? To produce women, very poor women, and to make them entrepreneurs. And this is a project that is working well now in Africa, then in Afghanistan, in Chile. This is quite important because international organizations are supporting that. That is the International Developing, the Inter-American Developing Bank funded project, and we have to do more of those projects because international organizations are willing to help, but you need to prepare for them projects very well developed. We are in an asymmetric globe, that is the market, no economic borders anymore. Technology allows an internet work economy world. We have a strategic vision of business is needed. That is a crucial task in business schools to provide our students with a strategic global vision of the world. We are in a multicultural market, and we need to understand this context of cultures that we spoke a few minutes ago. That is very, very, very important. We need to understand the environment, the competition, and the demand to changes necessary in organizations. Leadership is imperative. We talked this morning about leadership. This is quite important. No? Ecological behavior, to keep the ecosystems, to have social responsibility, to have an engagement with the world is quite important, and knowledge and innovation are also crucial nowadays. What is coming next? Technology will take on a life of its own. Micro multinationals will run the world.
What's a micro?
Very small, very tiny organization. Now we have multinationals.
Oh, I see.
This is micro. No? Everything will be too big to fail. The South China Sea is the future of conflict. It's impressive how we need to make perspective. When I went to the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island in the year 85, huh? I went to the Naval War College, and the first day we visited the facilities of the Naval War College, and we entered into the War Gaming Center. And there was a huge space with a lot of screens, a lot of people, hundreds of people, and I saw the map of the Indic Ocean, 85. And I asked the tutor, what is going on here? They are planning the weapons for 20 years ahead. And in 2005, we had the Gulf conflict. That seems to be science fiction, but it is not. And this is going to be the future of conflict, South China Sea. Get ready for the democratization of destruction. The shape of the global economy will fundamentally change. The Americas, not the Middle East, will be the world capital of energy. That means North, Central, and South America will have the oil that the world needs. We need to exploit it. It's in the jungle, it's at sea. Very difficult. The world will be more crowded with old people. That's good. I like that one. I like that one. Yeah, you know, the population of the world was like this. Young people, 80 years old people. Now it's becoming like this. And very soon it's going to be like this. Impressive. No children are born. People is not dying. People live 80, 85, 90 years old. No children. This is very sad. Look at the portion of kids in the world in the future to come. Problems will be global and solution will be too. And this is the final part of my presentation, what is being called the economic freedom in the world. And you will see by colors the economic freedom. You see the green, dark green is 80 to 100 free, light green 70 to 80, 60 to 70, 50 to 60, 0 to 50. And you will see the situation of South America. Venezuela, Argentina, Ecuador. They are going backwards. What is amazing is the green. We were talking last night of the Pacific Alliance. That is going to be the most important alliance in these 10 years to come. The Pacific Alliance, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. And you see the color, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. We have now a common stock exchange. We are with free trade agreements. We are a very rich countries. And this is going to be an important region of the world in the years to come. Where do you see green? Europe, South Africa, and a little bit Turkey, Saudi Arabia. This is very, very sad. What's going on in Latin America? This is similar to this one. Brazil is another country that we need to observe. It's a huge country. It's the most important country in Latin America because of the size, but I don't know what is going to happen with Brazil. This is the economic freedom in numbers. You can see Cuba. The most important country in economic freedom is Chile, followed by Peru is Santa Lucia. Peru is also almost 70, not so bad. Uruguay. This is interesting to read. The Heritage Foundation. Go into this web page. There are a lot of important information for all over the world, but especially for Latin America. These are figures you have in the handout. I'm not going to go through this. Michael Porter was in Peru 2 years ago. Now he's in very bad position, Michael Porter, with monitor. No, but Michael Porter told us very interesting things. That was his diagnostic about Peru. What is unique about Peru? Abundant natural resources, central location in South America, vast biodiversity and ecosystems, the business environment, privileged access to foreign markets, open to foreign investment and capital flows, foreign direct investment and capital flows, people, rich culture, history. You have to go to Machu Picchu. That is the most important part in the world nowadays. No? Creative and entrepreneurial population, very keen people, very smart. No? Young, hardworking population, legacy of domestic cooperation to overcome obstacles. This is the same that this, in a more detailed way. Peru's endowments. Was a very interesting diagnostic that Michael Porter did. And you see the GDP per capita in Peru since the 1950s. It's not very impressive. Being a rich country, we are not doing well in general. No? Recent performance, remarkable economic growth, 9%. Sound macroeconomic policies, improvements in basic security and political stability. The bad performance, growth has been highly heterogeneous. We have very rich people, very poor people, and we cannot change that. Lack of diversification. Sustained growth will depend on broad microeconomic and institutional improvement. And among the biggest challenges for Peru are the complacency after years of solid growth. We are sleeping, and we should not do that. We need to start moving forward. And to finish the presentation, these are the two recent performances of the Peruvian economy. A sustaining economic growth of 8 to 9% is impressive. No? But we need to improve competitiveness. We are in the 44th spot in the competitiveness ranking. Peru will need an ambitious economic and social strategy, building on the country's unique competitive advantages. Thank you very much. Jero.
Just a quick question before I finish, Professor Dallas. You mentioned something interesting when we spoke earlier. talking about some other economic blocks or cooperations around the world, whether in Europe or Asia, where there's a huge diversity in countries, different languages, different religions.
Yeah.
Yet they make it work. In Latin and South America, I mean, obviously Brazil speaks, different language maybe than a lot of the others. The religions are closer. There's a similar or same language.
Mm-hmm.
Yet sometimes we have a hard time to get along.
Yeah.
Do you think the Pacific Alliance will live up to its expectations?
Oh, yeah.
Will be one of the most significant alliances, and why?
Unfortunately, Latin America speaks the same country, it's the same language, Spanish. Even Brazilian is very close to Spanish. We have the same religion. Most of the continent is Catholic. We have the same traditions, the same everything, and we can do anything together. Never. Historical, we cannot. This is a failure. It's incredible, unbelievable. Europe was a continent fighting wars, not the same religion, not the same language, not the same culture, and they are together in spite of the situation that is a little bit weak nowadays. But they have a euro, they have the euro, they have an economic European community, we have a free trade agreement, this is an economic bloc altogether. You can not deal with Italy, you cannot deal with France, you have to deal with the community.
So do you think the Pacific Alliance will live up to its expectations?
We have to do it.
Yeah.
And we have to make the others join us. Unfortunately, we have a disparity now because of Chavez in Venezuela, because of Cristina Fernandez in Argentina, or Correa in Ecuador, and also this lady in Brazil, Marosov. And Evo Morales in Bolivia, of course.
What advice?
Very soon.
And I wanted to first of all thank the students for coming this morning. I know it's hard on a Friday morning to come. But what advice would you offer students or executives going into Peru as far as key things that they need to keep in mind when they enter the country to do business there?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. Everything is to be done. If you invest in Peru, you are going to be very rich very soon, because there are a lot of things to be done. You can start every business in every type of industry, and you will be very, very successful very fast. What we need is investment, foreign investment.
What would be some tips, though, maybe even from the group, of doing business in Peru? Maybe what are some of the mistakes or things that foreigners are going to should avoid? Do's, not to do's. What could be?
Jose. He's an investment guy. He runs angel capitals.
Yeah, we're actually venture private equity and doing that. So no, I think the biggest challenge that we have is really still building up our management skills piece. That's I think the crucial aspect. We're talking about vast resources, a lot of young, resourceful. We're very entrepreneurial, but I think we still have to build up the management skills. And I also think that one of the things that we're missing, in spite of being there in the center of South America, at least the people like us here who are from Lima, we think we're the center of the world, and we're not. We're really sort of, in that sense, still provincial, and I think we add a lot of value. Cosmopolitan vision, more worldly vision will help us a lot, because that will help us open our minds. There's a minority that has an open mind, but I think, especially on middle management, we still need to work a lot on skills, and we still need to work a lot on and I think that's an opportunity for anybody coming from outside. Actually, one of the interesting conversations I had yesterday was with Chinese students and Indian students, because we would benefit tremendously, not only from, let's say, Western type students, but also from other emerging markets coming into Peru as well. And since we have that lack of human resources, I think if we do things well, we will actually be importers of what I would call talent and benefit from that. Yeah. And the other thing that I think is good at is, I think there's a lot of opportunity on the environmental issues. Peru is a vastly diverse country, biodiverse, both animals and plants, and I think there's huge opportunities of that. But we have to get more, because we're not an R&D country. But if we would focus more and get more R&D, more research, really, that still needs to be done. And as Professor Isa pointed out, we have a huge portion of the jungle. And that's the land, it's going to be the land of the world. And we still, the problem is the crisis, the financial crisis has made us all a little bit forget about the environment. But that needs to be taken care of. And that's going to be a global effort, because that oxygen is for everybody. It's not for Peruvians. We're going to be having lots of CO2 sequestration. We have a lot of CO2, and that CO2 is very valuable to the world.
Carbon signature.
Exactly. I mean, the whole carbon credit is going to be a big market at some point in time once we recover from this whole meltdown. So, I don't know if that answers.
No, that's interesting. We also touched a bit on culture.
Right.
So what would be unique from a cultural perspective about doing business in Peru? Or is it shifting?
No,
Very,
I think, sorry.
very friendly people.
No, in general, I think we're very open-minded. The thing to take into account, though, is if you go outside of Lima and go into the Andes, let's say the social context, you need to understand more the inland of Peru than the coastal, because we're looking at it from our coastal base, we are going to be very open. I mean, the business people are going to be very open to new people coming in, to new investors coming in. In general, both our regulation and our attitude is very open, but a lot of the businesses that we have to do in Peru is inside of Peru. That means up high there, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 meters. We still have that segment of the population that has not seen development. As he said, there's an asymmetry in our growth. And you need to be very careful in how you deal. Some, for example, in mining, some foreign companies have done it very well, and others just failed miserably in dealing with the communities and the development of those communities. That needs to be upgraded as well. So that's one of the things I would be careful with. In general, with the business people, I would say we're very open-minded. We're very open. We like to receive people. And our regulation is fabulous. I think that it's one of the best regulations for foreign investment there is in Latin America.
That's another thing. The Peruvian skills of the people is one of the best of the world. They have improved the way they work. They overpass the difficulties.
Yeah. Very keen people.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Very persistent.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very nice morning. Thank you.